I'm hoping everybody's having a great time, great night, great morning, depends on where you're at in the world. I want to talk about what actually killed pro wrestling. No, it was not John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, Brock Lesnar, Vince McMahon, CM Punk, none of these guys. There's one man, one incident that completely not only changed wrestling forever, but it killed wrestling. Put it in better terms, wrestling still exists, but it killed what wrestling could have been if it wasn't for this incident. Simple. For those that don't remember that time, I was a kid, 15, I think 16 at this time, maybe 14. This is 2007. Those that are around my age now, 30, 32, you remember this if you was been watching Raw, SmackDown, whatever. We've been watching wrestling for years. I'll never forget, and we'll get some context. Vince McMahon, the week before, supposedly blew up in a limo. He went in a limo and it blew up. And it was just like, this is crazy shit, right? The next week, for those of you who remember, this is what changed wrestling forever. And it killed what wrestling could have been today. The Chris Benoit murder-suicide incident. People got to stop blaming Vince McMahon. Oh, he killed wrestling. John Cena killed wrestling. CM Punk killed wrestling. No, Benoit did. Why nobody understands this? And I'm going to tell you why he did. Dude, let's imagine if Benoit, if this never happened, let's imagine in a world, in a parallel universe, this never actually happened. Benoit's still alive. Let's say that. Let's say if Benoit was still alive, the industry would be totally different right now. Benoit would have been ECW world champion. They would have put ECW behind his back. That's what would have happened to him. Now, whatever else would have happened, I don't know. But I can tell you what would have happened. The PG era would have never existed. Because in my opinion, the PG era is why wrestling is completely watered down. Obviously. Yes, when John Cena was in his prime, were they getting millions of views? Yes, they were. 5 million, 4 million views? Yeah. But you got to put this in context as well. They still had Undertaker around, Shawn Michaels around, Triple H around, Batista was still around. So he had other stars with him to help with around this time. Edge was around in his prime years. This is between 2008 up to now, because that's when everything changed, because Vince McMahon had no choice to. What are you going to do? Let me give you a fun fact of how this affected everything. I'm a fast forward 3 years later, 2010, from the Chris Benoit incident. Daniel Bryan got fired when he debuted with the Nexus. Wade Barrett, Ryback, you all know that. He got fired for choking Justin Roberts. He was a ring announcer at this time. They attacked. It was one of the most wildest attacks I ever seen. They fucked up the ring. They beat the hell out of Cena. He spit in Cena's face. He was choking an announcer. It was like one of the best, like, wild attacks I ever seen in wrestling. He got fired for choking Justin Roberts, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why. This was the PG era. What Benoit did is why he got fired. Benoit changed the complete consensus and narrative of pro wrestling forever. You gotta get this, bro. They were blaming Vince for Benoit's doing. Oh, the cheer shots. He was on roids. This is why Vince McMahon wellness policy completely tightened up. This is why. This is why there was no more cheer shots. This is why there was no more extreme spots at all for a very long time. And they did certain things, but it was very watered down to compare in 2007 and back. So if you're Vince McMahon and you got people coming at you and you are at the brink of your company could get sued, your company could get bankrupt, all types of shit. They investigating, they thinking Vince McMahon is a reason why he had a roid rage or whatever it was. He all them cheer shots fucked up his brain. They were blaming Vince. What was Vince supposed to do? Was he supposed to do the Paul Heyman and say, fuck y'all, I'm going to do what I want? Guess what that network was going to say to him? We don't want nothing to do with you. You can find your own, you can record your wrestling show at a parking garage then. What was Vince supposed to do? Vince did what anybody's supposed to do if you want to keep your business alive. You better get with the times. You better get right. You better change your roles. And that's exactly what Vince McMahon had to do. So stop with this. This person did it. No, Benoit killed wrestling. Let's think about this. I'm going to tell you this. For the kids, for a lot of people that don't understand, this time of 2007 and back, bro, villains were actually villains. Edge was one of the most despicable villains I've ever seen in pro wrestling, bro. Randy Orton, Triple H, all these different people. Hell, the Attitude Era. Can you imagine if Benoit, if this type of shit would have happened in the Attitude Era? Do you think the Attitude Era would have happened if something like that would have happened? No. They would have had to completely wipe away the Attitude Era, and it would have been a PG era early on. We never had no incident like this with a wrestler going crazy. And the fact he was a top wrestler at that. He wasn't a jobber guy that nobody really cared about. No, he was a top wrestler. WrestleMania main events and shit. That's why it affected the product of pro wrestling in general, but especially WWE. They had no choice but to be PG if they wanted to survive. This is why the views went down. Wrestling back in that time, more adults was watching it because it was a lot more adult based. You had women that were sex valets. You had women that were just sex symbols, and it wasn't a big deal. You had the violence, the blood, the cursing, the wild storylines. Villains were allowed to be villains. I'm going to tell you what MJF is doing. He's the closest thing to that time when we had real villains. When MJF was heel, that's why he's over with people, because he's the closest thing to that feeling of a despicable shithead. Randy Orton and all, bro. Randy Orton used to cop a loogie in motherfuckers' faces, bro. He spit a loogie in Mick Foley's face, bro. That shit wouldn't fly now. You know how much shit bro. He had a wild extreme rules match with Mick Foley. Thumbtacks and all that. That shit will not fly in the WWE now, bro. Because of Benoit. Now, will the WWE ever go back to TV 14? It's possible. But they got to slow burn that shit. They can't just all of a sudden we seeing cheer shots. We seeing barbed wire. And they can't do that. The WWE has a reputation to improve too. They have garnished to the children, which was a smart move. But they got to slow burn that. They got to. They can't just, well, fuck it. We just going to be PG-14. We going to start showing more titties on wrestling. We going to start showing all that. They slowly doing it. Slowly, because you can see the women's gear starting to be a lot more revealing. Becky Lynch is looking like a snack sometimes. I don't mean to sound perverted. I'm just saying. These women are starting to look like snacks sometimes. Literally. You know what I'm saying? And on top of having a good wrestler. Now, did the PG era completely kill the WWE? It didn't completely did it because it was a lot of good things. It was a few good things that came out of it. The in-ring stepped up a lot more. We got a women's revolution, you know. But other than that, it's watered down so to a T. Can you imagine if Benoit never did this? Can you imagine the villain Miz really could have been? Think about that. Can you imagine the villain Roman Reigns really could be right now? Benoit is the reason why heels can't be heels. He's the reason why we can't have blood in WWE like that. They do it here and there. But he's the reason, bro. He's the reason that why pro wrestling is completely watered down. Now on AEW is trying to bring back that rugged, raw, authentic, unpredictable feel to wrestling again. It's your opinion if they overdo it or not, but that's what AEW is trying to do. They're trying to bring back that feeling. But it's not going to translate that heavy until the WWE come back to it. Because at the end of the day, the WWE is the pinnacle of pro wrestling. If WWE were to die tomorrow, pro wrestling's dead. So that's why I said Benoit killed wrestling. It killed what wrestling could have been today. Y'all don't understand, bro. Undertaker used to hang niggas on crosses and shit. Triple H was having sex with dead bodies and, bro, like, the Attitude Era was insane. Can you just imagine if Vince didn't have this leech on him, what he could have came up with later? Bro, he had a match with God. what are you talking about? Go look this up if you think I'm lying. Vince McMahon is an evil genius. Can you imagine the shit he probably would have had Miz doing, Roman Reigns doing, if he didn't have this leech on him? So, I'm going to end this. Chris Benoit killed what wrestling could have been today. He watered down wrestling, bro. Stop blaming everybody else. Chris Benoit did this. Not CM Punk with a pipe bomb, not John Cena with the PG era, none of them. They did exactly what they're supposed to do. Benoit, this shit was not supposed to happen, and it happened. Vince wasn't ready to do this shit. Go look at the Attitude Era and tell me Vince wanted to do PG. No, the Ruthless Aggression era was still the Attitude Era. It was just more wrestling based, but it still had wild characters, Boogeyman and all these. It still had wild shit going on. Niggas getting set on fire. Kane set MVP on fire in the Inferno match and all that shit. It still was wild shit going on. Still wild shit going on. So blame Chris Benoit, not nobody else.